Hey YouTube. Hey Feodor.
Hi, Michael. Thanks
Hey.
for inviting me to your podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so happy to have you first here on the channel here at YouTube, and of course on the podcast. So if you're listening live, give us some comments and feedback. I can already see a pre-question has been posted here in the live chat, so we'll try to get to that. If you're watching the replay, thanks for watching. All right, ready to kick this off?
Yeah.
All right, Feodor, welcome to Talk Python to me.
Thanks. Um, so I'm Feodor Fitsner. I'm working on this Flet project, as you know,
So
guys.
excited about your project.
Well, I'm excited as well. It's something new. Yeah, it's open source. I love open source, and it's actually this project is a spin-off. It's like a second iteration.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I started. Yeah.
You had a project called what was it called? It called Pagelet, right? Is that what you're
Pagelet.
referring to?
So yeah, it was Pagelet. So it started as an kind of internal tool for making quick apps, like throwaway apps, and it was for web mostly. So it's like it started like as a web thing, and yeah, it was Pagelet. Then I shortened the name to PGLED, and some guy on Hacker News said that it's probably about like Postgram, something like, or PostgreSQL.
Oh no.
Yeah, so I got confused and I started calling it like Piglet. So I didn't like the name,
Yeah.
and I didn't like that it's only web.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
the next step right after web, I started looking into like doing desktop apps with this stuff, and realized that actually the only choice is using WebView.
Mm-hmm.
And WebView is really platform specific. So on macOS is one thing, it's like Safari. On Windows is like either like WebView 1, WebView 2, which is required a separate download, etc., etc. So I
A lot of
was
times
kind
they don't
of.
have like full support for modern HTML as well. So certain things you do might act janky on a certain version of an OS. Yeah, it's always a weird thing, isn't it?
Yeah, so yeah, the this pagelet was made on React, and I realized pretty quickly that you cannot open it like right away in a web view on Windows, because it's this Microsoft Edge browser. So you have to add some like polyfills, etc.,
Mm-hmm.
etc., to make it work on Windows. So yeah. So then I don't remember the exact moment, but probably I saw like an announcement from Google that they're releasing this like Flutter something like into production for web and desktop.
Yes.
And I become interested, what is that, like, and I look into like Flutter thing, and I realized actually that it's been on the market like for a long time, and mostly
Absolutely.
used for mobile apps, and it's
I'd
something
always
new.
kind of dismissed Dart as just, kind of like a weird coffee script type of thing. It's like, oh, just another language to program to write JavaScript. Boring. But then when Flutter came around, it got way more interesting. So before
Hmm.
we dive into what Flet is and how we work with it and why you built it and so on, let's actually take a bit of a step back and
Hmm.
let's actually talk about the two building blocks, or one of the building blocks. We have Dart, the programming language, which has been around since 2011 or so. And then we have Flutter, the UI framework that traditionally or normally you would use with Dart to
Hmm.
build initially, I think it was just initially web apps, wasn't it? And
Yeah,
then they
yeah,
added mobile, and then they added desktop. And the combination of those three things is fantastic.
exactly.
All right, well, let's start with Dart. Tell people about Dart. I'm not a super expert in it, but I have been experimenting to see whether using Dart and Flutter might be the right way to rebuild the Talk Python training mobile apps, because they're okay now. They have bugs. There's a whole story about the App Store about why they're not fixed. It's part of the problem, not just the way that they're written. But I would really like to modernize them, and I'm thinking that Flutter is the way to go. So I'm personally interested, but not very experienced in it.
Mm-hmm.
But I've done a little bit. So that's the perspective I'm coming at this with. Tell us maybe about your background with it as well, and then we'll talk a tad about Dart and Flutter before we get into the Python side.
Sure. So I have to say I'm coming from Microsoft world,
Okay.
from .NET. I've been in .NET like since the earliest betas, So I
Since like the
grew
year
up.
2001 or something, right?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember
Okay.
we were going through the language specifications sent to us by Microsoft, in a Microsoft Word file. So at that time, so web. I'm a JavaScript guy, of course, yeah. And then I learned like anyone else, like TypeScript, and then Flutter. So
Yeah.
my impressions about Dart are very, very positive. It's so nice. I mean, maybe it's me, but it looks and it feels better than TypeScript. Like, to me, maybe it's because
Yeah.
of they have a great tool in Visual Studio Code, maybe,
Yeah.
but it felt so natural to write something in Dart. And I love this, like these sound null references, like where you can have basically nulls. It's a really like huge problem, like these nulls or nils, or like so yeah, Rust like dealt with that. There are no nulls. Go somewhere like in between. So this Flet server is written in Go, and in Go you can have like null strings, but you can have null references, like nil references. But Dart is great. By default, it doesn't allow nulls, and it makes your app working as expected. And
Yeah. And for people who don't know, Dart is out in the audience. Tushar puts it as a modern language, which is the mix of the good parts of JavaScript and Java. I would say, yeah, it feels a bit like Java, a bit like C# in its syntax and the way that it works. Also a little bit like Swift with its optional, like explicit optional type system. It's kind of a mix of all the stuff that was either in those languages or came out in Swift later. And it's a pretty nice language. It's really different than Python.
oh well, yeah,
Especially
it is.
untyped Python, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So Dart, I mean, yeah, you can see all different things in Dart, like TypeScript, like C#. Yeah, I agree. But it's so. I mean, I would I would love to see many things like implemented in Dart, like transferred to JavaScript or TypeScript. Like it's pretty easy to write. Yeah,
It
and
is.
yeah,
If people who are listening, we might not want to scare them away thinking they would have to learn Dart in order
sure.
to do this, right? The whole
Yep,
project that you are working on is
yep.
sort of well, what if we used Python instead of Dart, but we still kind of use the building blocks of Flutter, which I think we should probably discuss as well, because it's a unique way of programming. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So the problem is not in Dart itself. Dart is a great language. I mean, you can spend like a few days and pick up like basic things, and like you become really decent in writing Dart. The Dart is not the problem. The problem is um, in Flutter. I mean, it's a great framework. It's so flexible. It's so powerful, but it could be kind of like a steep learning curve. Like I would compare Flutter to React. So if you come in from React, could be easier to
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
to.
React
But
Native. Yeah.
so yeah, you know what? Again, as a guy coming from like .NET world, I remember those times when we were writing apps using like ASP.NET Web Forms, stateful controls, sessions, on server side, and now we translated to these stateless apps, like single page applications, where the UI is built of like it. And to my mind, like this application state, managing application state, like mutating application state, like is the most challenging thing.
It is.
It's all right for a simple hello world apps, but if you write something really complex, there are a lot of tons of libraries, like Redux, like probably the most popular. Like there is Block
Yeah.
for Flutter, so it's a really challenging problem.
Yeah, and I've
Sometimes,
been working, like I said, I've been exploring and trying to learn some Flutter to see if it makes sense to work with. And the state stuff about it is crazy. It's really difficult to figure out kind of where does this fit in my application code?
yeah. Sometimes you just want to take, something and write like a simple app, like it. Don't bother with this like state, like.
Mm.
Yeah, it could be really challenging. Like there are a lot of questions. Why would like if we're talking about React, like tree re-renders all the time? Like
Mm.
what's going on? Like is it all right to use this or that? So it's kind of like if you look at any um, even trivial app in React or Flutter, it's pretty complex,
It
like
is.
right away. And we're not talking about like backend, because you have to like fetch data, like synchronize data, like with the like database on the server side, right? So it has like even more complexity, like having like a backend. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah, for sure. You gotta create all the APIs, and then you somehow gotta keep them in sync. Then you've got to do security from the front end to the back end, and there's a whole
exactly.
bunch of stuff. So just having a single app that just has all your code, all your state running is really convenient.
Yeah. I mean, I don't remember exactly when we transitioned, like we developers transitioned to that, like like common concept, like that those apps should be made like of like front end and back end.
Yeah,
It should be
yeah.
like. So we abandoned the idea of monolith, or like maybe because they're not scaled well, but you know what? Actually, the idea behind like Flet. So we're not trying to pursue like a framework, like for building apps serving like millions of users, right? So if you're building like a line of business app, like and you have a huge like developers team, maybe you don't need that framework. But if you're doing something small to serve like hundreds of, like of users, like it's all right to assume that you can eat memory, you can be a little bit slower here, like, so you can lose a little bit your requirements.
Yeah, and
And
I think it's probably worth just taking a step back just for a second and talking about Flutter and how it
sure.
runs, because while some of these things you're saying are true, a lot of this would be running on the client side. So that's fine. It's running on the desktop app. It's running in your web browser, but as a sort of a front end type of thing or whatever, right? It's not so server focused.
Yeah. If it's, it depends on the application,
Mm.
exactly. So if you write in a game, like let's say, yeah, it's all about everything is running on the client, right? So, but most of like business applications, or like like I don't know, like admin panels, or like tooling,
Yeah.
it's all
I just
about
need a
like
dashboard that shows me the recent
dashboard.
orders, and I need to like click them off to turn them to say we've finished them or they're pending or like that kind. It doesn't have to be
So
Netflix
yeah,
level of design. You just want something quick and get it up and share it, right?
yeah, and in these apps, if you look into these apps, like every click on a UI, actually, it's a call to a backend. You
Yeah.
know, so yeah, if you write something like that can work on a mobile, like on a desktop, yeah, it's a standalone app. Maybe it requires some service like for authentication, but if it's mostly a standalone app, yeah, you don't need backend, and Flutter is great, etc.
Yeah. So if you look for people who are listening, if you go to flutter.dev, you can see some of the apps that are in the App Store with Flutter. And there's some really nice ones here. You've got the BMW car app, you've got Stadia, you've got whatever the heck it's called, Google Pay. There's a showcase you can go and they actually talk about the different apps that are up here: Google Pay, ByteDance, eBay, iRobot. Like there's legitimate
iRobot, oh nice.
Yeah, iRobot.
I got this app, like
Rive. There's a question in the comments
Rive.
we'll get to in a minute about that actually. A bunch of apps, and then you can also go and see that there's a thing called it's all widgets. As you'll see, the way in which you design these apps is code first, and you create these things called widgets. You have some interesting ideas around that, Feodor, but yeah, you can flip through and there's just tons of apps. So here, at least the ones people submitted, there's like 3,000 apps in this showcase, which, so it's a pretty well used project, right? So we have Flutter, and it's not like React Native or something where it puts HTML into your code, but it kind of is powered on top of the HTML engines. It runs by using an HTML canvas, but then it just completely does its own rendering to that, like 120 frames a second type of render. Like, but the idea is it's supposed to be completely in control of the pixels so that it looks, pixel perfect across all the devices. That's their selling point, and you can see how well they go. But until recently, I thought the only way to program that was Dart. And then I learned about your project, Flet. And I got to say, I'm not the only one who thought it was pretty cool. Out in the audience, we've got Abhay says, Feodor, I love you, man. Thanks for creating Flet. And then there's another
Nice, and thank you for your support.
yeah, there's another biggest fan, and so on. So people definitely appreciate this project. So what is the story? I gave my limited experience with what Flutter by default is. Oh, also we mentioned this, but it's worth just emphasizing once again. Flutter compiles to different targets. Flutter runs as a JavaScript app on the browser, but it compiles natively with a ahead of time compilation to execute on the desktop and on mobile, right? So it's not just running some sort of web interpreted type of thing. It's literally compiled in native code on the other platforms, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about Flet. This Flet, the fastest way to build Flutter apps in Python. So exciting. What is this thing?
So, all right. I have to admit, maybe the current title like a little bit clickbaity,
So
because I was.
There's the whole thing about marketing open source projects and gaining momentum, and
Yeah,
I'm not gonna hold it against you.
Yeah, I was thinking a lot about like how would I tell people what I'm working on, like and but heck, why not? Like we're not building Flutter apps per se, but we help to build your Flutter apps. What if not Flutter apps? So yeah, I can say yes. You can build Flutter app in Python, and it's good. Like Flat, it's not just about like reflecting all the widgets, all the power available in Flutter, like to Python space. It's not. It's we trying, like in Flat, we trying to cater like all these, like to present all those widgets, and their combinations to to Python users in a very, digestible form,
Yeah.
like Flutter. It's those widgets. They're very highly specialized in Flutter. There is a widget for padding, there is a widget for opacity,
Yeah.
there is a widget for that, so it's like, if you try to write something like real, you will get this ladder,
Hmm.
like of widgets, and it could be really challenging to work with this ladder. In
Yeah, it
Flat,
is. Yeah.
we trying to combine some widgets, like to flatten this hierarchy, uh, to make people more productive.
I've been trying to look around the Flutter site, and I'm not doing very well while we're talking. For an example, but the way that you write code, the Dart code version and the
Mhm.
Flet code version, the Python version, is some UI frameworks have kind of a designer, right? Think Xcode and storyboards, think Visual Basic or Windows Forms or WPF, like where you can see it and you can drag things around. Flutter is very code focused on using these widgets. So you might create a list tile, and then you would have the contents equals a list of, rows, and the row object you're allocating or creating there has like a list of things that are, buttons, and it's like very, you see almost the hierarchy on the screen, right?
Yeah.
And in some sense, programming in Flet feels a lot like that, right? You could sort of see on the home screen that there's this this place where you're going to a page and adding a row, which takes a list of icons and so on. But it sounds to me like you've also done some work to build larger building blocks than just that, right? You call them components and not just widgets.
Yeah. So, well, definitely to work with these frameworks, you have to have a pretty good, like sense of like balance, like imagination, like you put these controls and you have to like imagine like what would be like on the screen. And also, Flutter has like hot reload, so you can
Yeah.
experiment pretty fast. And there is also a project, Flutter Floor. I looked into that project and it's really nice. It's a new startup. Maybe you can cover it in some of
What's
your
it called?
Flutter Floor. It's like web
Flutter
floor.
floor like that?
No, like flow,
Oh, I see flow like that. Got
it's
it.
like yeah, like
Yeah, Flutter
yeah,
flow. Okay.
yeah. There you go. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So
This is
these
news to me.
guys, so yeah, you can drag and drop, and they produce like a
Oh,
Flutter,
wow.
like a package, like basically like.
I see. It's a UI designer, and it'll generate the hierarchy of widget. Probably it writes the codes behind the scene for you or
Mhm.
something like that, right?
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's pretty
Wow.
nice,
Interesting.
and
Okay.
we have something, in our roadmap as well. So we're gonna make something very similar, but instead of like Flutter code, it will be generating like Python code instead.
Mm-hmm.
So it's gonna be interesting as well. So yeah, and uh, components. So we call them controls. People asking about like why control, like why not call them widgets. I don't know. I didn't use term widget a lot at the time, like, but it's historically, maybe it's because of it's coming like from like desire to replicate ASP.NET web forms.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah. That
was,
was the terminology there. Sure.
yeah, controls and WPF, like Windows Presentation Foundation,
Mm-hmm.
also like controls and Xamarin controls. Yeah, so
You've been swimming in this terminology, so here it is, right? But
yeah,
yeah.
it's controls, and again, it's not like one-to-one like reflection of Flutter widgets. We trying to be creative, so we like trying to have some opinion, like what would we like to put into control. So we don't want them very generic. We don't want them very complex. So yeah, and actually, it's an interesting thing if we talk about like paradigm. It's React and Flutter. They're like declarative style programming,
Mm-hmm.
and we are converting this back to imperative style. So you can find an article on Flutter website, like describing the differences and why it's cool, like to build UI from the state. But we are like with Flat, we are going back to imperative style, like Xamarin style,
Right. Okay.
where you change control properties, and they have a state.
Yeah. You can say like a dot text equals type of model. Yeah. So let's actually, I think maybe the best way for us to understand this, there's a ton of questions about how it runs. Like, does it transpile? Does it compile? I want to get into that, but I think the best way for us to set the stage for that discussion is let's talk through your tutorial, okay? Because that'll cover
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the capabilities, some of the programming model, and so on. And if people drop over to flet.dev/docs and click on the tutorials, you have the obligatory to-do app. But the one that looks interesting to me is this calculator app, right? Like here's something that looks it looks literally like the one that I have on my iPhone. It boggles my mind that a $1 trillion company cannot put a calculator on their larger version of their iPhone. So I can't say it looks like on my iPad one, but this would run on the iPad as well. But this looks like something I would really like to interact with. This is built with Flet, running on Flutter with Python. So let's go. And what's cool is you can find a live demo because Flutter runs on as a single page app in the web. It runs on iOS and Android. Oh, wow. It runs on iOS and Android. It runs on the desktop. So if I say 5 times, 10, like, granted, it's a calculator, but it's pretty neat. And this is just one of the deploy targets, right? So let's talk us through like first thing, I can pip install Flet. Do I have to have Flutter? Do I have to there's like quite a series of steps to set up your machine to be a Flutter dev machine. It's got to have like iOS simulators potentially, and the Flutter and Dart SDKs. All of that's a prerequisite to this, right?
Yeah. You know what? Actually, it's also a huge obstacle. Like if you want to start doing Flutter, it's like I have both like Windows and Mac OS machines
Same.
like at work. You have to install a lot of things to start doing something and especially on Mac OS, it's Xcode, like something like I'm still trying to figure out the whole like bunch of tools you need. Yeah, like especially for deployment. But here,
so Flutter actually comes with this thing called Flutter Doctor, and I'll put up a screenshot of what I get when I run it. I'm running it right now, and it's still running. There we go. Here, hold on. I'll put this up, and so people can see.
Sure.
Does it? It doesn't really want to. Does it want to load it? Come on. In order to share it, I got to get it to come up. There we go. So I'll try to include a screenshot or a link to this something. But it's like checks that Flutter is installed. Check that the Android toolchain is installed. Check that Xcode is installed. Check that Chrome is there. Android Studio, IntelliJ or VS Code. That there's host available. Like there's a bunch of steps to make all this happen, right? So we still need to do this. So that's my question: is I still need to go through the steps to generate like the Flutter configuration on my machine.
So I have to say you have ideally green list, like because I have some gaps. Like I didn't install like IntelliJ, like all this stuff. So in Flat. So this client part, like it's a Flutter app which knows how to render, let's say, JSON tree, like page or UI representation in JSON format. So it knows how to render it, and it has like a final functionality. So it's compiled, it's precompiled for all the platforms, like for Windows, for Macs, and these executables, they're included into Python like wheels, So
Hmm.
when you install Flat, it basically downloads like as a part of a wheel, it downloads Flat client, which is Flutter, like compiled Flutter app, and it downloads Flat server,
Oh,
which
so I
is
might not actually need to do this.
well,
All
yeah,
the
you don't see it. Like, I mean, you can see it in logs, or if you go and see side packages of your Python installation, you'll see all those executables.
okay,
So
interesting.
yeah, that's why you need nothing.
Oh, that's
So for
fantastic.
it,
Yeah.
yeah, it's for desktop, for web, like compiled Flutter web app is embedded into Flat server, so it's like it adds another 2 MB to like executable itself. But so yeah, we have embedded like web part, and you download either Linux, Windows, or macOS client with your wheel.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and the
So
wheel knows which platform it's being installed on.
yeah,
Let me
exactly. So a
yeah,
bunch
let
of
me check
wheels.
how big this thing is. I went through your example and that we're going to talk through, and I
Okay.
compiled it to a dot app, a Mac dot app application, and it's 38 megs. That's seems totally reasonable for me for the base runtime, basically.
Oh, Michael, but oh yeah, you're unfrozen. You
It was
were
a I was sorry.
frozen.
I
So
was
yeah,
just thinking
it's
about. I was just thinking a lot. That's all.
yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, for macOS, it's it's the biggest. Like yeah, like you said, like 30 something. Like for Windows, it's probably the smallest size. Maybe not for Windows, but for
Yeah, but I
Linux.
mean, you compare that, say, to an Electron app. An Electron app is very large compared to that.
And yeah, because it packages browsers, so you have the same picture on all platforms, right? So yeah, exactly. The Flutter is nice because, like you said before, it's the same rendering engine like on all platforms. Like
Yeah,
it's Skia, something like on, and even on web it's Canvas. So you have the same picture on all platforms, and
yeah,
this is
fantastic.
nice.
It
Yeah.
is. All right, let's talk through this. Let's talk through this example. So pip install Flet, that takes care of all of it. I'm sorry, derailed us talking about all the setup of Flutter and Dart and all that. And so in order to write code with this, I don't want to talk through too much code, but I want to give people a sense of what it feels like to write code with this. It feels like very much like kind of a Python variation, with the difference that it's more imperative, as you said. So we would say from Flet import page and text, and you have a main method that is past a page.
Hmm.
And then you just say add text, and you set the value. You could set the background color, and
Hmm.
then you say run, and well, hello world Flet. There you are, right?
Hmm.
But you have other controls, like you have elevated button, and then you have a bunch of layout. I mean, you as the developer,
Yeah, like
because
raw.
Flutter provides a lot of these, like it provides row and column and containers and all of those things. And you just have a way to talk to those from Python, right?
Yep.
How does that happen? Like how, what's the interop layer between Flet and Dart and Go and all those like low level aspects? And then when I write Python code, how
So
does
yeah,
that
it's a
work?
it's a good question, right? Like because people are constantly asking about like doing APK, like or IPA files
Mhm.
from this stuff, like, and
Those are
we have
the compiled output for the what you ship to the App Store for people who haven't done that.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So the way it works is the following: in the middle of all this. There is a web app basically like written in Golang. It's called Flat Server or Flat D for short, and it holds in memory this like current state of the page. Like when you like from one side of this server is language or like this Python library like basically when you do this page dot add, uh, it sends like a JSON basically to this web server and
I
updates
see.
the state.
So when I do this, I'm working in Python, and the result is to build up this control structure, this widget structure, and then it sends over to this embedded web server that's native that says, build this in Flutter now, right? Something like
Exactly.
that. Okay.
Exactly. So this Flutter client from other side, it connects to this server with WebSockets. So
Yep.
like in real time, and there is like a bi-directional channel between like this server and the client. When you push changes from the language to this server, it sends like like an update to Flutter app. And when you click something on Flutter in Flutter, like you do some like type text in the text box,
Right.
text field,
Some event is
it
raised. Yeah.
sends back to server, and server routes it back to Python code. So yeah, it's like three components, like client library in language. Right now it's Python, server, and client. So it's like three
Okay.
things.
So when I execute my Python code, is that running on full C Python, or is that running on some limited lesser thing? Like, do I have full access to all of Python while I'm here?
Exactly. And when we're talking about deployment of this stuff to mobile devices, on the first stages, we're gonna support this so-called like server-driven UI approach. And yes, your code runs by a real Python, and you have access to all libraries. Yeah,
Wow.
because yeah, if you decide to put this on a phone like Python,
Mhm.
there could be, as you know, there could be limitations, right? and
Yep.
and most of those projects I went through Kivy and was it like Beware project as
Yep.
well.
Yep. Yeah.
they're doing
Beware,
a
Kivy. Those are
they're
both
doing
interesting.
absolutely amazing job, like by packaging Python for mobile devices. But there are always like like,
Mm.
so mostly they encourage you to use like pure Python modules, right? But because
Yeah.
if you decide to use like modules with native libraries in them, you have to make sure that those are compiled for ARM 64 architectures, right?
Right. Which gets really tricky.
Hmm.
Sort of related to that out in the audience, maybe the first question we'll take before we get to some of the others is, can we use other Python packages with Flet? Like, could we run machine learning code on the click of a button? Asks Raul.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And the idea of Flet was not like to be a central part, like in your app, but to be on the side, like to add UI to your application. So you can make your app live, like. And goal was first of all to make uh, to add like web-based UI, so you can share your app with your colleagues, with your team, like customers. So yeah, absolutely, you can use any libraries, but we lack some visualization controls yet compared to
Okay.
other tools like Streamlit, for example, like for scientists.
Sure.
Absolutely. Or there is another project like Dear by GUI,
Dear PyGui. Yeah, I had those. I've had both of
which
those groups on the show
which
before. Yeah.
is amazing, like for very fast, visualizations. Flat wouldn't be
Yep.
there probably, like
Right.
so
Right.
yeah.
More of a building interactive
Yeah,
applications, perhaps.
with low latency. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. So I feel like we kind of answered this, but I think it's also maybe worth pointing out. Like Tushar asked, is this a transpile to Dart project? It sounds like definitely no. It runs in C Python and it serializes the UI to this other part of its process. Is that
Yeah,
right?
there is no transpiling. Yeah, and I saw a lot of, I know what people talking about. Like I saw a lot of like horrible implementations like, transpiling Rust to Dart, Dart to Rust, like Python to all these guys. I mean, it's gonna be a fragile solution, unnatural, and to my mind. I
Well, and
mean,
soon as you say, well, can I use this library or that library? The answer almost is always is no, right? If you're, you think of something like Sculpt or Python, which is like Python in the browser, but transpiled to JavaScript. It's, well,
you
how do
will
you,
you
how to use these other libraries? Like, there's no
you
way to
will hit
really,
the wall. You will
yeah,
hit the wall at some point.
yeah,
So if I were like an engineering manager, I would never go for that. Like in a real
yeah,
project, like.
yeah. Except for maybe some real special tools or use cases, but yeah. All right. Moving on down the line of our tutorial here, one of the things that you have to keep in mind and focus on when you're working with Flutter in general and Flet with Python
Mhm.
is how do you build out these layouts, and how do you position the controls? And it looks like if you know one, you kind of know the other pretty well. So, for example, here we're adding a row whose control is like the output, but then the next row is you say the controls are the first row of buttons, and then another row whose controls are the next row of buttons, and you just keep building this up, and you pretty quickly end up in something that looks like it's kind of a real basic calculator app.
Yeah.
And then you get into containers, right, where you've got
Hmm.
a container contains like a column that has each row, and you kind of like put it together like this, right?
Hmm.
But how, I guess the question I wanted to ask you here is how similar or different is this than Flutter? It feels to me like it's pretty similar, at least
Exactly.
in
So
the zen of it. Yeah.
yep. You know what? So Pagelet was based on Microsoft Fluent UI library, and for making new layouts, there was like stack. So stack could be like horizontal or vertical,
Mm-hmm.
and here we decided to do not bend Flutter into something else, but go with the same terminology. So stack is basically like a bunch of layers, and we use row and column and all this stuff, and it feels good. I mean, like row and columns inside, like rather than having stack everywhere or like
Mm-hmm.
div, if you will, like
Yeah.
div, and
Yeah.
then add some like semantics to div by classes. Like it's still horrible, like div. Here we have row, column, row, at least, so you can, like distinguish these, like, visually. So
Right. One of the benefits of structuring your code like this, and you do touch on it in this tutorial, is that you can build little reusable segments. Right. So, for example, if you've got a row that has a column of stuff, and then another row with more columns, you could take just that column, or even build up just one row at a time, and put that into its own function or its own class, and then sort of include that kind of in the control sense of the traditional, Visual Basic, Windows Forms.
yeah.
Like here's now I have a bigger thing to drag around, but in this world, like drag around is just like write code to create it and put it in the right spot.
You know what? And I've been really amazed, because it works so good. uh, I understand the first question people ask, like, how would I make my own like Flutter component? But you know what? You can do these user controls in made of these primitives Flet provides, and it works pretty well. They're
Yeah.
isolated. They can handle events inside them. Like if you put few of those user controls like on a page in different places, they will be all behave like separately, and it's so nice. I mean, maybe it's side effect. Like I wasn't thinking about that like while doing this stuff, but it's so good. So you
Yeah.
can build.
And can these controls, do they have their own state?
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
And
So
we
you could have like
already
put information about it and need some buttons to interact with it. And they sort of keep track of just that little block, right?
even better, like it's whatever you do on Flat UI, it's getting persisted right way. So whatever, let's say if you have a huge form and you type something into this form and you do refresh in your browser, all the information will be there after
Oh, wow.
refresh. So it's like, I mean, yeah, it's so
And
great.
for
Like,
a desktop app, say if I close it and open it again, will it remember?
no, it's it depends. So right now it's a standalone app, and when you open it again, it will load another instance of this Flet server with the clean
Right. So it kind of
state.
loses the state. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but
I suspect you have access to the file system somehow. You could save it if you wrote the code to do it, right?
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. We're gonna make it. Yeah.
Since this is Python executing, could I do like SQLite and say SQL
Absolutely.
Alchemy and figure out like I'll put the file in my user's app, data directory in their profile?
Absolutely. Right now, we're working on a more advanced example with like using database. I mean, like not advanced, like but with using the database, and also we're gonna add data table control for working with grease. Like
Nice.
because it's missing right now. Yeah.
Yeah, related to that, out in the audience, Raul asks, is the way it looks and feels, is this material UI? Can we change the theme and styling? I know in raw Flutter, you can have like buttons out of the material design, or you can have buttons out of, what do they call it? They call it Darwin or whatever the iOS equivalent is. There's like different places you get the buttons to look different. And what's the story around that?
So right, it's a good question. I came from Microsoft world, and they have Fluent UI, and it looks different. And what actually Flutter was my first like experience with Material UI. And you know what I see? Honestly, even compared to Fluent UI, it's pretty solid. And I would say they have a strong commitment to this Material UI like strategy, and it looks really nice. You don't have to sell people what it is. Like I would probably need to sell people Fluent UI, but I don't need to sell people like this Material UI.
Yeah.
It's nice right away. It looks nice. It looks pretty solid. But for different styles, yes, you can style. Like there are limited styling features right now, like in Flat, but we're gonna pull more, and also we will be doing these adaptive controls.
Oh, so if I run the app on Windows, it might look different. That it might be material versus if I run it on Mac OS, it'll be the whatever the heck it is, the Darwin
Exactly.
variant.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, you can actually. You can. I don't know how to share a link with you, like, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can.
There's a private chat here in the streaming through, and I'll
Yeah,
pull it
give.
up for us.
I will show you how it might look like.
Oh, fantastic.
Ladder
While
Fluent.
you're looking that up, I just also want to point out for, event handling is a super important thing in UIs, right? Like
Yep.
UIs are basically get the stuff on the screen and start handling events and updating the UI accordingly. And so in Flet, all you got to do is, for example, for your button, you say on click equals like a function called button clicked, and you get past
Yep.
the data. And you could also associate like here's the indicator or the data of the button, and when it's clicked, pass that over to it. Like for example, the action to take, and those can even be Lambda expressions, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. If you manage to put it in the single line, like. So lambdas in Python are limited somehow, like.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Oh
it's
yeah, they're
possible.
single line. They're like
I use it. I use
expressions
it
of
a
the
lot,
language.
like print something as lambdas, in the event handlers to see if it's being called.
Yeah,
So I dropped you a link to Fluent UI.
yeah.
It's a library for Flutter. It's really cool, and there is a web demo even, like, and there is
Oh,
also like Flutter macOS UI, something like. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There it is.
all
I'm
right,
dropping
cool.
the link as well. So, and for mobile apps, we have a lot of controls like this Cupertino library built
That's what it's
into
called.
Flutter.
Cupertino. Yes. Not
Yeah,
Darwin.
right
Cupertino.
away.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I get it. I get it. For many users, it could be really inappropriate to see like Fluent UI, let's say toggle
So,
button on
yeah.
Mac OS, on iOS.
This
So
looks
yeah, we're gonna.
fantastic. Yeah. I mean, one of the just when you open an app and it clearly looks like it doesn't belong on the platform, you're like, this is weird. What is this?
Yeah,
It doesn't bring the right impression. And this,
yeah,
I mean, the stuff that you're showing on the screen, and I will link to the examples. Like, I could
yeah.
be convinced this is a proper Mac OS app as well as, proper Android or whatever it is you're looking at. Right? It's beautiful.
Well, if you like a specialist, you can definitely see like some odds. That
Yeah, yeah. You're like,
it's
oh,
not
that
like
button's not
native.
quite. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's drawn. Like.
Right. The way Flutter works is it doesn't pull in the underlying
Mhm.
window widgets out of your OS. It literally redraws them from scratch, but they try really hard to make it look the same.
You know what? It's always a debate. If you go somewhere like on Harp News, you will have these debates. What would be like, because React Native, it's about like display native controls, right?
Mm.
But is it a good thing? Like when you precise design, and I work with designers in big companies, like, and it could be a problem if you cannot deliver like precise design.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So this gives you more stability across platforms for your look and feel. A question in the audience, which I think we're going to get to in a second. Sugato, hey Sugato, can you create mobile apps with Flet? And I don't know if this is on the roadmap or this is already ready. We might have to save a bit of the conversation for the roadmap discussion, but
sure. So as requested multiple times by our users, I assembled this like mobile strategy. Michael, if you can open this in a blog, it's in the blog.
the blog, gotcha.
It's
Okay,
blog Flat mobile strategy.
there you go. Cool.
So yeah, definitely it's not like we forgot about mobile devices. No, quite the opposite. Where I'm always thinking about mobile experience. We are getting there, like maybe slowly, but we're getting there, and we will be there. So we want to deliver not just like the way you can build like APK. We want to like enable developers, like to quickly test, for example, these like experiences on mobile devices. Because it's a complex process,
It's very complicated.
yeah, like packaging and signing and publishing, reviewing, etc. So it's and many companies, they're moving to this server driven approach, like Airbnb, like Lyft, like big players, so they can bypass like app store reviews, and push some new functionality like right away from their web servers. So we're going to explore this approach first, and yeah, definitely we will look into packaging everything into like mobile package, like I mean Python compiled for ARM64, this Go server compiled for ARM, and so making this like sandwich working on mobile and packaging it and delivering to mobile
Okay.
device. Like it's like the last.
This is the biggest challenge for you all,
It's
right? And
challenge.
it's not quite there yet, right?
It's challenge. Yeah, it requires you to be a low-level programmer. Like
Yeah,
low.
and Sugato actually has a follow-up saying, "Cool, PyTorch is trying to make model serving available with React, and using Flet could be a very accessible alternative."
I will look into that. It's
Yeah, that is interesting.
it's a fancy topic, right?
Yeah, so for now, out of the box, I can package this up as a desktop app or a mobile app. And desktop means Linux, Windows, Mac OS.
so yeah, just to make it right, like you can package it like as a desktop app, Windows, Linux, Mac, and as a web app.
Yeah.
On the mobile experience, you can use it. You can use it as Power PWA app.
Right. So you package it as a mobile app and then you install that as a progressive web app and then it's kind of good to go.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, but not like a native mobile experience.
Got it.
I'm working on it right now, and there is a branch for that. You can
Okay.
always
Exciting.
observe like in a live real time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. Fantastic. Let's maybe do, let's see, where's my tutorial here. So the very last thing, there's some stuff we talked about the events. You have in there, you talk about how to package it up as an executable, and basically that's PyInstaller. And then you have it's steps on how to, package it up as a web app as well.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So let me ask you, maybe I'll pull up the roadmap as, put that as the background. Is this ready for people to build apps with? Like, what's the state of Flet? It's very exciting and it looks quite capable, but should people be using it yet? Should they be giving feedback, or where are you with this?
So as it's basically like a second iteration, so we had this proof of concept, like Pagelet as a proof of concept, and this guy, it's still despite it's like a second iteration, it's still 0 point something. So there could be, I don't expect any drastical changes into API, but there could be some breaking changes going forward. But and also to have a complete picture, I would love to have like mobile experience to complete the cycle, like web, desktop, mobile. But in general, it's pretty ready to build like these apps where like apps it made for, like
Yeah, we're
simple
talking
app.
the forms over data, the little portals and the dashboards that we talked about at the beginning, right?
Exactly. So I think it's pretty much ready for like prime time. Why not?
Nice.
All modern software is beta, Yeah, like so it's like
Yeah.
Scrum,
It's always evolving. What's
Yeah.
the contributor story? Are you open to having other people submit PRs and help out with, say, tutorials and stuff?
Absolutely, all people welcome,
Awesome.
and and I know it's challenge for some projects, but I really want to spend time on that, like working with people, writing guidelines, etc., like establishing rules. So absolutely, it's because it's not an open source project if you're not accepting PRs,
Yeah.
or if you don't work with people. It's like published source project.
For sure. Yeah, exactly. It's source
Yeah, I
open,
know
not
it
open
is.
source. That's right. Let me put an idea out there. You have 2 really great tutorials here.
Mm-hmm.
Are you willing to accept more tutorials?
Sure.
So over on the flutter.dev/learn section, they have some tutorials over here.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it would be fun if people could like try to create the equivalent of these tutorials, but in Flet. I don't know. That might be a cool thing to create and see
Mm-hmm.
if how they come out.
Yeah, it's a nice idea, but maybe it's not even worth a separate tutorial. Like like in Flat, it could be like a single page of code. Like
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So when
I will take a look.
when I look at this looks a lot like, I'm looking at the Flutter page. This looks a lot like a Dart version of Flet, or
Mm-hmm.
Flet looks like a Python version of this, right? It has this same hierarchical code type of thing. There are some differences, like we talked about, like state and stuff, but it looks really, really similar. So if I am a Flutter developer, how easy is it to go to Flet? And if I learn Flet and like, I really need the true native version, how easy is it to go to like pick up Dart and then go to Flutter?
If you already a Flutter developer, well, the only requirement there probably is you should know Python, right? Like at the
I'm assuming that
moment,
you know Python. Yeah, sure.
yeah. And I think it's pretty acceptable to write something in Flat. I especially love the idea of using Flat as a prototyping thing,
Mm-hmm.
or because you can easily do something
Yeah, it
over a
is so much
weekend.
easier. It's so much easier. People who have not
Yeah,
tried to write in Dart, I feel like I am constantly chasing what const means. I didn't mean to double that up. Constantly chasing
oh my
const around.
god,
I do not understand this language. So you might have a
maybe this is my
class which
complaint
you're
as well.
passing as const, and you might need to take away that const, but then it's required to have const in other places. But then it like cascade. It's just, I'm like, okay, there's like 5 places I got to either remove or add const because I just want to change. Like, this is driving me insane, and I don't see any of that in Flet, and it makes me happy. It
Yeah,
sounds like you've
because
been down
maybe
this as well, Fedor.
yeah, because maybe you're a perfectionist, like you're trying to avoid all those, like warnings. Like
Yeah,
yeah. So
yeah.
yeah, it's so
It's
yeah
it's a
for
it's a hassle.
Flutter.
Yeah, yeah. So the
Yeah, for
prototyping
Flutter.
story makes me think like maybe you could build out stuff really quick because you don't have to deal with all those little weird language edge cases.
Yeah, and I had a few customers, like users on Discord coming from Flutter world. So yeah, and again, the way back to Flutter from Flat is also possible. Why not? I mean, like if you grow up, like grow out of like this Flat thing, like and you need something really unique like animations, like some weird transitions. So why not? So you can
Sure.
go and learn Flutter, and dive into this world, like.
Yeah, no, I
But
think I agree that they should be pretty transferable. Like certainly knowing one will help you know the other, no doubt about it.
absolutely.
And the way you think is real similar. So John asks, how do you handle Android and iOS permissions, entitlements? It sounds like you're not quite there yet, but maybe you have some ideas on where that might go.
So as right now, we actually, you know what, we are not like delivering this anywhere, like, but we already building iOS and Android packages as part of our CI process. So they're already there, and they're already published into App Store, ready to be like sent for review.
Nice.
So yeah,
And so
as
you
it
just
is
put the
like so.
entitlement in that compilation target, basically.
Yeah. So definitely, if so yeah, if they all these permissions right now, they have to be put into these precompiled Flutter client, like Flat client app. Or right now we're working on a Flutter widget. So Flutter widget called Flat, so you can embed Flat experience into any existing Flutter app.
So that sounds like you're doing it in reverse. So
Exactly.
you
So
would
I mean, like,
create and build a Flutter application, a native one, compile it. But what you can do is you can create a section of your UI that is Flet.
yeah, exactly. Imagine you already have an app written in Flutter, or native app like in Kotlin, like for or Swift. You can replace part of your app with this like Flat, driven by server-side code written in Python.
Cool.
So yeah,
In that scenario, where does the Python run? It runs on the server.
on the server, yeah.
Okay.
And you can actually having this app, your mobile app, deployed to client devices. You basically have to redeploy Python code in the server to deliver new experience, new UI,
Interesting.
new clicks,
Yeah.
like whatever.
I don't know how relevant this is, but it might be. Have you looked at PyScript?
Yeah, sure.
If some of the challenges is like, well, how do I end up running the Python part? Could you WebAssembly your Python in and get it native, and get it locally, like for offline version?
So yeah, people asking like there are a lot of technologies right now, right? Like uh, if we're talking about PyScript and WebAssembly, it makes sense for web apps, right? You know what? And actually, Dart itself is being compiled. Okay, right now it's only part. Its key engine is in WebAssembly, but Google have plans to compile Dart Flutter apps into WebAssemblies as well.
Okay.
So it makes sense for web. For mobile, it should be native code.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for mobile, it should be native code. I'm not sure. Maybe tomorrow we'll see some like engines like translating like this WASM into native code.
Yeah, if you could run WASM in your native
Mhm.
application on iOS, then maybe this is open some kind of door. Yeah.
But again, as far as I know, it's really restrictive environment, mobile
Yes.
phones.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's not the same. It's not the same as saying, well, sure, you can use PyTorch or requests or whatever.
Yep.
Okay. Well, Feodor, I think we're out of time, but I want to congratulate you on a super interesting project. It's really cool.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you bet. Now, before you get out of here, you got to answer the final two questions.
Sure.
If you're going to write some Python code, what editor do you use these days?
Nice. I love Visual Studio Code, you know. I mean, I would love, some people recommend trying PyCharm, and I believe it's a really great idea. Maybe I will look into that, especially if it's like it's free for open source projects. But right now it's VS Code. Yeah,
cool.
it's
Well,
great.
I can tell you your calculator tutorial works all the way through on PyCharm because I just did it right before our show. So it's all good. It's all good. Now, also notable PyPI package, like obviously Flet is a good one, but other libraries you may have run across recently are like, oh, this is cool. People should know about.
Well, for me, it's a really challenging question because I'm a new guy to Python, and I don't know, like I don't have any like favorite packages, you know.
Yeah. We can throw Flet out there. How's that?
So yeah, maybe Flet is nice.
It's not
you know
disallowed. You pip install it. You can say that.
Yeah, and you know, it's actually it's non-trivial, and I spend a lot of nights trying to put these wheels right, like to include these binaries. So it's pretty cool, and I can, like, if you guys have some questions like how would you repackage those wheels during the CI process, so I would be really too happy to share my experience,
Yeah,
because I learned learned a lot of packages and the internal structure to understand how it works, like basically like zip files, what's
cool.
inside.
Awesome. All right. Well, final call to action. People want to get started with Flet. They want to build an app with it, or maybe even contribute to it. What do you tell them?
Absolutely, go and try it. Hop on Discord. I'm always online. Let me know what you liked, what you didn't like. We're always listening. So, and definitely contributions are welcome. So yeah.
Cool. Awesome. And you, at the bottom of the homepage at flet.dev, you've got a subscribe to our newsletter. I guess people can get updates on the project if they want there, right?
Yeah, I haven't sent anything there yet, but yeah,
it's all about building up the group of people who are interested in what you're doing. All right.
So it's mostly Discord right now.
Yeah, got it.
So it's pretty active. Yeah.
Good to know. All right. Well, once again, super exciting project. I've ranted on this before. Having some kind of UI framework that is really modern and fresh in Python is super important. Flet is quite interesting in that space. Having a very viable mobile story for Python, also really interesting. So as much as you bring those things forward, more power to you. We love it.
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah. Thanks. See you later.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Thanks everyone for listening.